Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Richard Riakpohre, is this his first fight? Was this his first fight at heavyweight? If so, he was quite impressive. He got the job done. He knocked out Tommy Welch, previously undefeated, in only 2 rounds. This was a massive step up for Tommy Welch. Welch is the son of Scott Welch, who was it British and Commonwealth heavyweight champ? I remember him knocking out, who was it, Oyabola, for one or two of the belts. Anyway, yeah, I mean, look, it was one of those sort of, fights that you didn't really know how good Welch was. I mean, he came in with 16 wins, 9 KOs, no draws, no defeats, 6'3", 30 years of age. So it's time to, step up. He'd been fighting on the small hall circuit, and this was a massive jump up for him against, a former world title challenger, albeit at the lower weight, the cruiserweight. And yeah, he was found wanting in terms of, I think, talent and skill, schooling, all that sort of stuff. But he started off really well. In the first round, he came out banging, swinging at Riakphore. And it was almost like, I think Adam Smith said on commentary, he wanted to make a statement. You're in with the big boys now. You're in with the heavyweights. I mean, I wouldn't say that Tommy Welch is a sort of massive heavyweight, not by today's standards. He's a big lad, but he could probably, Bridgerweight would be an option if he wanted. But he's not one of these giants, he's not one of these gigantic fighters. There again, neither's Riakpohre, former cruiserweight. I don't know what the weights were for this, 230s were they in, both of them? Early 230s. And unless you're, Usyk and you're really incredibly talented and a generational talent, you do need that size in this current land of the giants. But anyway, Tommy Welch came out slinging in the first round. Riakpohre, in the first, after about 30 seconds, he was fine. He settled down. And to be honest with you, Welch stalking. Riakpohre got the jab going a little bit. Both orthodox fighters. And, you didn't really think... I thought this would go on much longer than it did. I thought if there was going to be a stoppage, it would be late. Dimensions-wise, Riakpohre, by the way, is 2 inches, a couple of inches taller than Welch. I suppose, it's negligible, really, I suppose. But he's also 35 years of age, and that is a bit of an eyebrow raiser, because I never think of him as being that old. So Tommy Welch, a mere baby at 30, Riakpohre 35, not particularly old for a heavyweight. And he is he was the British cruiserweight champion and fought for a belt. So, by the way, even though he lost to Chris Billam-Smith, let's not forget that they had 2 fights, and he won the first one back in 2019. That was a 10-rounder. But when it really mattered for the WBO title, he lost over 12 rounds. He never really got going, and I think probably the weight was an issue, because looking at him at 6'5", and he looked cut at heavyweight. Yeah, maybe that super cruiserweight or bridgerweight, if you prefer, division could be slotted in if it's done sensibly. I think they've got the weights wrong with bridgerweight. But when you think of the jump up from, 200 pounds to... and 233 or whatever it was, Riakpohre weighed, and he's still a small guy in the modern day heavyweight age, you could make an argument for a super cruiserweight or bridgerweight division. But having said that, I think Riakpohre is going to be a threat. He finished the fight off sort of out of the blue, really. It was 3 knockdowns, but to be honest, the fight was pretty much over after the first one. He landed, I think it was a 2 overhand rights. One of them caught Welch on the temple and put Welch down on the bottom rope. He got up, but his legs were just not. His legs weren't at the races anymore. He looked a little bit shocked, like, "Ooh, what was that?" But fair play to the guy. He carried on. He carried on fighting back. He carried on trying to fight back. He's trained by his dad, by the way, Scott Welch, I think, whereas Riakpohre's trained by Billy Nelson. I didn't realise that until I saw Billy Nelson in the corner. But Welch tried to move, wasn't getting anywhere. Eventually, Riakpohre landed another right hand, overhand right, that sent Welch skidding off the ropes and down. He got up again, looked at the referee, said, yeah, I'm all right. He got up again, and then, but his legs just weren't under him. And then when he went down for the third occasion, he just sort of down on his haunches. I think the referee said, oh, that's your lot. He just waved it off. The ref said, no, that's your lot. Mark Bates, I think, was the referee. He just said, no, that's all she wrote. And fair play, because I think it was the initial punch for the first knockdown was what ended it. It did land on the temple. And those scrambled your equilibrium, and you just can't find your legs. And Welch knew where he was, despite those 3 knockdowns. He just couldn't, his legs just wouldn't work. He just couldn't get them to operate. So he's probably got, some sort of concussion, mild or otherwise. But they were chatting afterwards, Riakpohre and Welch, and it all seemed rather cordial. Can Riakpohre make a splash at heavyweight at 35? There were so many heavyweights, British heavyweights in the mix. I've said this before, most of them are with Queensberry. Is Riakpohre with Boxer or Queensberry? I think he's with Boxer. I might be wrong about that. But I'm sure Frank Warren, bearing in mind how much he dislikes Ben Shalom, would quite happily lend one of his heavyweights to fight Riakpohre and knock him off his perch. But yeah, sometimes it's how you get your work done. And I've got to say, despite the fact Tommy Welch was moving up in class, as a quantum leap up, the way Riakpohre went around about his business was good, was very impressive. And it'll be work for anyone, I think, definitely. So what did you think of the fight? How far do you think Riakpohre can go? Do you think this result flatters to deceive maybe a little bit? Maybe you don't think Tommy Welch was all that. Maybe you thought he was just an area level heavy. But let me know what you think. You got any opinions? Leave them below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I always appreciate your support. I say that every time, but I really mean it. And more to come tonight. I'll catch you later. Bye for now.